We think we know what poor people ate in the past. Gruel, stale bread, misery in a bowl. The truth is far stranger, far more varied, and in some ways far more impressive than we imagine. The peasants of the medieval and pre-modern world, from the fields of England to the rice paddies of China, from the deserts of the Middle East to the highlands of the Andes, ate foods that would genuinely surprise you. Some of them shockingly healthy, some of them shockingly strange, and some of them the direct ancestors of dishes you might have eaten this very week. Today, we are counting down 7 things that ordinary working people ate for dinner across the medieval world, and we are traveling around the globe to do it. Some of these will surprise you. A few of them might even make you hungry. Using advanced AI trained on the archaeology of ancient and medieval diets, the analysis of bones, teeth, and preserved food remains. The surviving records, recipes, and accounts of peasant life from around the world, and the work of food historians, we have reconstructed what ordinary people actually put in their bowls. Let us begin where most people in medieval Europe began every single day, with bread, but not the bread you are picturing. Number 7. Dark, dense, sour peasant bread, and the deadly secret hiding in it. The European peasant's life revolved around bread, but it was nothing like the soft white loaf of today. It was dark, dense, and heavy, made from rye, barley, oats, or a mix of whatever grew locally, often including the parts of the grain the wealthy discarded. White wheat bread was a luxury of the rich. The poor ate the dark stuff, and lots of it. Bread could make up the majority of a peasant's daily calories. But here is the shocking part. In damp years, the rye that peasants relied on could become infected with a fungus called ergot. Bread baked from ergot-infected rye contained powerful toxins, chemically related to modern hallucinogenic drugs that could cause a horrifying disease. Victims suffered burning pain, convulsions, hallucinations, and in severe cases, gangrene that caused fingers, toes, and limbs to blacken and fall off. Whole villages were sometimes struck by outbreaks of this madness and rotting, a disease so terrifying it was called St. Anthony's fire. The peasants had no idea their daily bread was poisoning them. The thing that kept them alive could also, in a bad year, drive them mad. Number 6. Pottage, the everlasting stew that never ended. The other half of the European peasant's diet was pottage, a thick stew or porridge that simmered in a single pot over the household fire. Pottage was made from grains, peas, beans, and whatever vegetables were available: cabbage, onions, leeks, turnips, wild greens, herbs. When they could afford it, peasants added a little salt pork, bacon, or bones for flavor. The surprising thing about pottage is that it was, in many cases, genuinely nutritious, a balanced mix of grains, legumes, and vegetables that, in a good year, provided a reasonably healthy diet. And here is the part that surprises people most. The pot often never fully emptied. A family might keep the same pottage going for days or even longer, adding new ingredients each day to the old, so that the stew was constantly renewed, never quite finished, a kind of permanent, ever-evolving meal bubbling away at the heart of the home. The bottom of the pot held flavors that had been building for a week. Number 5. In China, a bowl of millet or rice and a startling variety of vegetables. Travel east to the villages of medieval China, and the peasant's bowl looked completely different. In the north, the staple was millet, a hardy grain that had fed Chinese farmers for thousands of years. In the warmer, wetter south, it was rice, grown in the flooded paddies that still define the landscape today. Around this staple, the Chinese peasant ate a remarkable variety of vegetables, far more than the typical European peasant. Cabbages, radishes, soybeans in many forms, gourds, and pickled and fermented vegetables that preserved the harvest through the winter and added crucial nutrition and flavor. Soy in particular was transformative, fermented into sauces and pastes and pressed into bean curd. It gave the Chinese peasant a vital source of protein without the expense of meat. Meat was rare and precious, used sparingly, often just a little pork or a few eggs or some fish from a local pond or river, stretched across many meals. The genius of the Chinese peasant kitchen was making a small amount of precious ingredients flavor a large amount of grain and vegetables. Number 4. In the Middle East, bread, lentils, and the dish that may be the oldest recipe still eaten today. In the medieval Islamic world, from Egypt to Persia, the peasant diet centered on bread and on legumes, especially lentils and chickpeas. One humble dish of grains and lentils cooked together, seasoned with spices and topped with fried onions, has roots stretching back thousands of years and is still eaten as a beloved street food in the region today, arguably one of the oldest continuously eaten dishes in human history. The peasants of this region also had access, even when poor, to a surprising range of flavors, because the great trade routes of the Islamic world brought spices, and because the gardens and orchards of the region produced dates, figs, pomegranates, melons, and other fruits. A poor family might eat simply bread, lentils, onions, a little oil, some yogurt or cheese, but it was a diet rich in legumes and grains that modern nutritionists would broadly recognize as healthy, the ancestor of the famous Mediterranean and Middle Eastern diets celebrated today. Number 3. In the Andes, freeze-dried potatoes made by stomping them in the frozen night. Now we travel to South America, to the high Andes Mountains, home of the Inca and the peoples they ruled, where peasants developed one of the most ingenious food technologies in the entire pre-modern world. The Andean staple was the potato, which grew at altitudes where almost nothing else would, but the Andean farmers faced a problem: how to store potatoes through the year without them rotting. Their solution was astonishing. They spread the potatoes out on the ground in the freezing nights of the high mountains, let them freeze solid, and then, by day, as the potatoes thawed in the thin mountain sun, the people stomped on them with their bare feet to squeeze out the water. Repeated over several days of freezing nights and thawing foot-stomping days, this process produced a light, dry, freeze-dried potato product that could be stored for years, even decades, and reconstituted by soaking in water whenever it was needed. This freeze-dried potato, made with techniques essentially identical to modern industrial freeze-drying but achieved with nothing but the mountain climate and human feet, was a staple of the Andean diet and a key to the food security of the entire Inca Empire. Number 2. In Japan, rice, fermented soybean paste, and pickles, the meal that built a nation. In medieval Japan, the peasant's meal was built around 3 things that, in combination, are still the foundation of Japanese cuisine today. Rice, the precious staple, so valuable it was used as a form of currency and tax, a fermented soybean paste that, dissolved in water with a few ingredients, made a nourishing soup, and pickled vegetables, which preserved the harvest and added flavor and nutrition. The poorest peasants often could not afford to eat much of their own precious rice, which went to pay their taxes to the Lord, and instead filled their bowls with cheaper grains like millet and barley, stretching the rice as far as it would go. But the basic structure, a grain, a fermented soybean element, and preserved vegetables, sustained the Japanese peasantry for centuries. A simple, frugal, and surprisingly balanced diet that is the direct ancestor of meals eaten across Japan to this very day. Number 1. The thing that will surprise you most: medieval peasants, in good times, often ate better than the poor of later centuries. Here is the most surprising fact of all. We imagine medieval peasants as the most miserable, malnourished people in history, but the truth is more complicated and in some ways more shocking. In good years, in many regions, the medieval European peasant ate a diet that was coarse and monotonous but surprisingly adequate. Plenty of bread and pottage, legumes for protein, vegetables, dairy products like cheese and butter, ale for calories and safe hydration, and, on feast days and at certain times of year, real meat. Their food was largely unprocessed, locally grown, and free of the sugar that would later rot the teeth and ruin the health of the modern poor. Studies of medieval skeletons sometimes show people who were, in good times, reasonably well-nourished and physically robust. In fact, in certain periods after great population losses, when there were fewer workers and wages and food were more abundant, ordinary laborers may have eaten better, with more meat and more variety, than their descendants would during the grim early years of the Industrial Revolution, centuries later, when factory workers were crammed into cities and fed on cheap, adulterated, nutritionally poor food. The deepest surprise about the medieval peasant diet is that when the harvest was good and the times were peaceful, it was not the bottom of human history at all. That was a journey around the dinner tables of the pre-modern world. The dark, sometimes poisonous bread of Europe, the everlasting pottage that never left the pot, the the millet, rice, and soy of China, the ancient lentil dishes of the Middle East, the foot-stomped freeze-dried potatoes of the Andes, the rice, fermented paste, and pickles of Japan, and the surprising truth that in good years the medieval peasant was not starving in misery, but eating a simple, unprocessed, and often healthy diet. The food of ordinary people, in every age and every land, tells us something the food of kings never can. How the vast majority of human beings actually lived, what they grew, what they treasured, and what they put in their bowls at the end of a long day's work. And the next time you eat a bowl of lentils, a dish of rice and pickles, or a thick vegetable stew, remember that you are eating something very close to the everyday meal of peasants who lived and worked and survived in fields all around the world many hundreds of years ago. See the Iliad story in the Paladin app, out now.